Rowan McKay. I am the Deputy Earl Marshal for the Kingdom of Atenveldt, doing a very overview class for marshaling, kind of going over things of what to do, how to start with, and why we exist in the first place. And going over an overview, what are the duties and responsibilities of a marshal? And short answer, we need to get as many people on the tournament and melee fields as safely as possible. That's the biggest overview of what we do. We're there for safety. And make sure that everybody is having fun, and getting hurt really isn't fun. Some things you do need to know are basics are what are the rules for safe armor and weapons, what is and what is not allowed. They can vary by kingdom, but overall they do keep very, very much. There's the society rules which we cannot change. We can add to them, but if they say something is not copacetic, it's nothing we can do to override that. And just to know, a brand new handbook did come out this month, actually, I think this week. And also, one thing we're responsible for is any office or official practice or event needs to have a warranted marshal if it's going to have fighting. If there is not a warranted marshal there, it cannot be an official event and have fighting. Who can be a marshal? Pretty much anybody who can be responsible for somebody's safety. Although preferred, a marshal doesn't have to be a fighter. And why we say that is preferred is to kind of know ins and outs, a little bit more of what's going on, but you can still know that. You can still look out for people's safety, what's happening, even if you are not a fighter. It's different channels to go through to become a marshal. The easiest way to learn it is to be a safety marshal. A safety marshal is someone that you'll see generally with melee, but it can be at tournaments too. And they're there to make sure that if they see somebody go down, they're keeping people away from going on the field that shouldn't be there. Say a toddler or young child decides, hey, it's a time for a game of mommy and daddy, let's catch me, and runs out to the field. I'm sure we've all seen that happen more than once. And fighters will not be paying attention to that. And if a safety marshal is needed, it'll generally be announced that day in court if they're needed. If this does happen, you would go to the marshal in charge, ask if you can help, whether or not it is announced. And the marshal in charge, the person that's in charge of fighting for that day, will let you know if and where you can be of service. If you're wanting to be a baronial, shire, or college marshal, you would need to speak to your respective group leaders, and if possible, the current group marshal, should they exist. That way you can learn the role, make sure that it is a good fit for you. I think it's a very fun role. It's something that I enjoy doing personally, but like everything, it's not going to be for everybody. And should you come to it fresh, there will be support, hopefully from the local level, but also from the kingdom level, if you have to come into that role with fresh eyes. Some of the basics that you need to know for being a marshal, the rules of the list, know what's happening. Whether it be a tournament, what's the format of the tournament? Is it, say, 2 out of 3? Are there special weapons rules? If it's a melee, what's the scenario? What weapons are or are not allowed? And things such as that. One thing you want to know is what your role will be. Are you going to be, say, we'll take melee, for example. Your role could be the buffer between the crowd and the fighters, making sure that you're safe from each other. You could be a timekeeper is another thing that can also be a marshal. Let's say there's a time scenario or something has to be done in a set of time. You can also communicate with field support on, when they are allowed on the field for, water and snacks for the fighters and things like that. Also, with knowing the scenario, going back just a bit, fighters will ask you, hey, what are we doing? So it's good to know what's going on because you will be asked that question. Also know what you need to look out for, such as, is there a specific thing with a scenario that's happening? What's the general temperature of the people's feelings? Are people getting upset very easy? That's something that really need to look out for. Does things need to change because of that? If people are getting upset on the field, then the fighting will become less and less safe. Things you also need to look out for is armor and weapons failure. Has a tip come off of the weapon? Has the weapon broken? Did somebody's helmet fly off? All these different things that a fighter might not notice in the heat of battle on any field, be it rapier or hardsuit or anything like that. Yeah, knowing what to do if something goes wrong. We hope it doesn't, but it inevitably will eventually. First thing you'll want to do is report to the marshal in charge. Let them know, hey, this person's weapon broke. This person lost, their helmet. This person is hurt. We need to get water on the field and things like that. And they will be the person, whoever is in charge for that day, that ultimately makes the call. But they can't see everything. That's why there's normally multiple marshals to be multiple eyes and ears for what's going on. If an injury does happen, it does need to be reported in writing in the Marshal Handbook, and I'll link it at the end. What is needed in there. And if you're unsure of what to put or what information is needed, reach out and say, hey, this happened. This person twisted their ankle, had to be helped off. Here's what happened. We want to get the information for the person, and essentially, mostly for insurance purposes in case anything happens further down the road. And if you don't know what to do, before the first lay on is called in anything, know who to go to and somebody that you trust that will have the answers. Things I touched on earlier, but things you want to look out for. This is my personal pet peeve on the hardsuit field anyway, is shield edging. Shield edging is, in my opinion, the most common offense. It's often in horrible repair, or it doesn't fully cover the shield. Easiest thing to fix, but it seems to be the biggest thing, so I put this on here because it's just kind of my personal pet peeve. The thing that a lot of it come lax on is, and the striking edges and stabbing points need to be clearly defined. That's something we've kind of gotten away for, and as a kingdom and as marshals need to get out there that, as it highlighted in yellow, all weapons exactly worded in the Marshal's Handbook should have cutting edges and thrusting tips that are marked in a contrasting color. This is really a courtesy for the fighters. And as before, like that, where if something looks broken, doesn't look right, if you have a question, talk with a fighter. Most things can be fixed on the field, not everything, but generally. Either another fighter will have the piece of armor or weapon or duct tape in a lot of cases. But safety is your biggest priority. And as stated at the beginning, the biggest job is to get as many people on the field as safely as possible. Now, there are different levels within the Society of Marshals. At the very top, we have the Society Marshals. They are the ultimate that has a say in the society. They essentially write the rules based off feedback that they're getting from all the different kingdoms, and will pass that down to the marshals and the kingdoms, which comes next. Once they receive the information from the society, then they will pass it down to the Baronial, the Shire, and the college marshals, which are largely in charge of enforcing it. The Baronial, Shire, and college marshals, they will deal with fighting the most. After that, we got the Marshal at Large. It's a special warrant. It's something you can actually have with a different warrant. And this is mainly to fulfill that there is a warranted marshal happening at a practice or an event, things of that nature. And I can throw this in the chat if you want to know, but these are the current society marshals. Currently, the Earl Marshal is Master Alan Gravesend. Everybody's email address kind of goes towards what they do. There's different marshals for Rapier, for Hardsuit, target archery and thrown weapons. So within Atenveldt, we've got the Earl Marshal and the Earl Marshal's deputies that they see fit for making responsible for signing warrants, authorization of cards, and communicating with the Crown and the Office of the Minister of Lists. It's something that a lot of communication has to go on for events, and making sure that the Office of the Minister of Lists have what they need, and they in turn do the same thing for the marshals. Currently, the Kingdom Marshal is Sir Pelagius. It's kind of in Atenveldt, the buck stops with him. Everything that goes on with Atenveldt will ultimately go through Pelagius. And his Hardsuit deputy, this dude, might recognize him a little bit, as myself, and also put up this information in the chat as well when I've gone through. The Kingdom Rapier Marshal is Taka Kenzai. The current cut and thrust Marshal, if I butcher the title, I do apologize, Fetchmeister Heinrich. We also do have Kingdom Youth Rapier, which Youth Rapier can start at the age of 14. Aoidh Kenzai is currently the Kingdom Youth Rapier Deputy. For Equestrian, we have Honorable Lady Sarah Grace. For experiments that are happening within the without the kingdom would be Domingo. I do apologize. I know you're here about how to say your your title. The current Kingdom Combat Archer Marshal is Master Gunner. Acting Kingdom Real Archer is the Honorable Pole. Patent pending. Next, we have the Baronial Knight Marshals. Said this will be probably the most active with marshals, because being a Baronial Knight Marshal, you're going to be at the practices, you and your deputies. You're going to be doing the lion's share of marshaling events. Also, the responsibility for that is you will also report everything that is happening up to the Kingdom Earl Marshal and your respective group leaders about how the practices are going, how the events are going, any incidents that may have occurred due to armor failure, weapon failure, things like that. You're going to be doing the vast majority of the reporting. And this goes also for the same for the Shire and College level, pretty much the exact same thing as the baronies. You have the Marshal at Large, which went over, stated this is a special warrant that practices could happen if for some reason Kingdom or Baronial marshals cannot be there. This fills law and makes sure that everything can still happen. And here I got a list, I'll also put it in the chat, of additional resources that can come out. On the Atenveldt.org, there's the list in the officers page under Earl Marshal, which does have all of the books for all the different disciplines. As I said, there's a brand new Marshal Society handbook that just came out this month. It does go live, for lack of a better words, in the middle of August. There have been quite a bit of changes to it as well. A lot within the Rapier, and as well as the experiment going on right now for heavy armor with rebated steel. I have links to those. I'll also put it in the chat so everybody can have a little link to that. Officially, I have not heard what's going to be happening with rebated steel. I'm sure all of us have a lot of questions on there, but there is really good resources through sea.org, and they have a YouTube video, which I also have linked in here, that I think does a lot of explaining pretty well.